He was just the janitor. That's what they all thought. Every day, he moved through the hallways unnoticed. He cleaned the floors, wiped down the windows, and made sure the classrooms were spotless before anyone even arrived. No one ever asked his name. No one cared where he came from or what his story was. He wore blue overalls, kept his head down, and spoke only when spoken to. To the students, he was a background character, just another piece of the school's machinery. But one day, that man walked into a classroom and left everyone speechless. It started with a math problem. Professor Callahan was in the middle of one of his notoriously brutal lectures. Known for being sharp, arrogant, and absolutely intolerant of mistakes, he ruled his classroom like a tyrant. He prided himself on intimidating his students. If you couldn't keep up with his pace, he made sure you knew just how far beneath him you were. On this particular morning, he had just finished scrawling a massive equation across the chalkboard, an advanced calculus problem involving triple integrals and vector fields. He turned to his students with a grin that didn't quite reach his eyes. "This," he said, "is the kind of problem that separates the real thinkers from the sheep." As he paced the room, his gaze landed on the janitor, who had quietly entered to empty the trash. The timing was perfect, for a man looking to make a statement. "You there," he said loudly, pointing to the man with the garbage bag. "Think you can solve this?" Laughter rippled through the room. Students exchanged amused glances. A few even pulled out their phones, sensing something viral might be about to happen. After all, what could be more entertaining than watching a janitor try to solve a problem even most students in the room didn't understand? But the janitor didn't smile. He didn't speak. He looked at the board, eyes scanning the equation like it was written in his native language. Slowly, without asking for permission, he walked toward the front of the room. The laughter faded. He reached for the chalk. Professor Callahan opened his mouth to stop him, but then closed it again. Something in the man's eyes silenced even him. And then, the janitor began to write. At first, no one breathed. One line became 2. Then 4. He worked quickly, precisely. Every step of the equation flowed effortlessly from his hand. He wasn't guessing, he was solving. The classroom was dead silent. Even Callahan was frozen. In less than 2 minutes, the man had arrived at a solution. He set the chalk down, turned back to the class, and said, "That should do it." The silence broke with a gasp. Not just because he had gotten it right, but because his solution was more elegant, more efficient than the method Callahan had taught earlier that week. It was perfect. And for the first time, someone other than the professor held complete control of that room. Students stared. A few even clapped, though they quickly stopped, unsure of how to react. Callahan's face had turned pale. He approached the board slowly, scanning the work line by line, trying to find a flaw. But there was none. Just a flawless solution, written by a man no one had ever seen as anything more than a janitor. Callahan finally looked at him. "Where did you learn this?" The janitor gave a small smile. "Once upon a time, I taught this." The room erupted. Students whispered. Phones started recording again, but this time, not to mock. They wanted to remember this moment. Because what they had just witnessed shattered every assumption they'd made about the man in front of them. And what happened next made some of them question everything they thought they knew, not just about him, but about themselves. See, what they didn't know was that this man had once been a professor. Not just a good one, a brilliant one. Back in his home country, he'd lectured at a top university. He had published papers, mentored PhD students, and stood on stages delivering keynote speeches. But then everything changed. A civil war. A government collapse. Overnight, everything he'd built was gone. He fled the country with his family and ended up here, starting from zero. His degrees weren't recognized. His credentials meant nothing. The only work he could find was janitorial. And he took it. Not with bitterness, but with humility. He needed to provide for his family. So he cleaned floors, scrubbed toilets. And every night, when the world forgot him, he studied. He kept his mind sharp, his spirit intact. Now, the same students who never looked at him twice were asking questions. Is it true? Did you really teach this stuff? Can you show us more? He didn't say much. Just smiled. But as he walked away from that classroom, something in the air had changed. Sometimes, the universe waits for the right moment to reveal someone's true power. And speaking of unlocking hidden power, if you've ever felt like the world doesn't see your potential, or like you're destined for something greater but don't know how to reach it, listen closely. There's a reason you're hearing this story right now. There's a method called the 369 Manifestation Code, a simple, 3-digit sequence believed to unlock the door to massive abundance, wealth, and opportunity. It's based on a powerful frequency that aligns your subconscious with what you truly desire. And no, this isn't some vague, think positive message. It's a real, tested manifestation technique that's changing lives. People all over the world have used it to shift their reality, in just 24 hours. If you're ready to discover what your life could look like when you stop living by limits and start manifesting intentionally, the link is in the first pinned comment. Trust me, it's worth it. Because just like our janitor, sometimes the world needs a little reminder of what's hiding beneath the surface. The video of what happened that day spread faster than anyone expected. Within hours, it had made its way from student group chats to faculty emails. By the next morning, the school board had already seen it. Some laughed in disbelief. Others were stunned. But one thing was certain, everyone knew who the janitor was now. Students who used to walk past him with their heads down now stopped to say hello. Some asked questions about math, others just wanted to talk. Something about him felt different. Not just because he had outsmarted a professor in front of a class, but because he had done it with quiet strength. No anger. No pride. Just purpose. Mr. Callahan, meanwhile, tried to recover his authority. But the balance had shifted. His lectures didn't carry the same weight. Students no longer feared him, they compared him. And he didn't like what he saw in the mirror. One afternoon, he approached the janitor in the hallway. "I owe you an apology," he said, eyes low. "I underestimated you." The janitor nodded. "Most people do," he replied, with no resentment in his voice. Callahan hesitated, then asked, "Would you consider guest lecturing?" It was a moment few could have predicted. But he declined. "I've already taught enough in this life," the janitor said. "Now, I just want to be useful in silence." But silence, it turns out, is a loud teacher. That year, the school saw more students asking deeper questions. More young minds staying after class, not for extra credit, but for real understanding. They weren't just solving problems anymore. They were thinking beyond the board. Because that janitor had reminded them of something the system often forgets: knowledge isn't about titles. Wisdom isn't always loud. And intelligence? It wears many uniforms. Behind every stranger is a story. Behind every quiet face is a universe we know nothing about. And sometimes, the people we ignore carry the lessons we need the most. He never sought recognition. He never chased applause. And yet, without intending to, he gave every student in that room a lesson they would remember for the rest of their lives. Not just in mathematics. But in humility. In presence. In power. So if there's one thing to take away from this story, it's this. Never assume someone's limits just because you can't see their journey. The janitor didn't need to prove himself. But when the moment came, he did, and with it, he quietly changed everything. And maybe, just maybe, the universe orchestrated that moment for a reason. And now it's giving you a moment too. Because if you've been living under the radar, if you've been underestimated, if you know you're meant for more, but something keeps blocking the path, then maybe it's time to step forward. You've heard about the 369 manifestation code, but this isn't just a story. This is your sign. Inside this simple 3-digit sequence lies a method designed to unlock wealth, clarity, and transformation, not over years, but in just 24 hours. Thousands of people have already started using it to reshape their lives, to break through mental blocks, to activate abundance. Now it's your turn. If you're ready to stop watching from the sidelines and start creating the reality you deserve, check out the link in the first pinned comment. The door is there. You just have to open it. And if this story moved you, if it made you think differently, then let it ripple forward. Backhand index pointing right. Subscribe to the channel for more powerful stories like this one. Thumbs up like the video if it sparked something inside you. Memo and drop a comment. What would you have done if you were in that classroom? Because sometimes, one story is all it takes to change the way we see the world. And sometimes, the janitor is the smartest man in the room.